Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Amominous. In today's episode, I am speaking with my very good friend Natasha Colkmire, and we are talking about homeschooling. We cover all the topics: why she decided to start homeschooling, how it's going, how the kids are flourishing, and how it really plays into her beliefs and what she wants to teach her kids. So stay tuned. If you're thinking about homeschooling, if you're currently homeschooling, I think you're really going to love this episode. So let's welcome Natasha to the show. Welcome, Natasha, to Amominous. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So, guys, I just want to let you all know Natasha and we have been friends for, probably like 5.5 years now, something like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we have experienced a lot together. We have traveled together. We have kids that play together. Our husbands are friends. So we're super close. And it's just been a blessing to have you as a friend. So thank you again for being here
Yeah,
today.
same. I feel the same.
I just feel very comfortable talking to you. So it's going to be a fun conversation. And today we're talking about homeschooling. We're focusing on
Mhm.
homeschooling.
Yeah.
Um, and when we met, your oldest was in public school.
Mhm.
Your oldest is a year older than mine. And I remember us having a conversation about you wrestling with the fact of, we have friends that homeschool their kids. And I know you were with your lifestyle, you like to travel and there,
Mhm.
kind of pick up and go, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a lot of facets to it. So I just want to kind of start off in the beginning of, when your oldest was in school. Um,
Mhm.
what was kind of going through your head at that time, and what ultimately led you to the decision to go ahead and go for it? It's a big decision to make.
Mhm.
I know you have to be prepared. I know you're an entrepreneur. You have a business. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on. So let's
Mhm.
just start from the beginning. What kind of was going on, that
Yeah.
made you kind of start thinking about it?
Well, I never thought that I actually would be a homeschool mom. It was one of those things where a lot of people told me, "Oh, due to your lifestyle, I really think you should homeschool." And I'm like, "Mm-mm, no, 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 no. I love to work. I want to work." And so
Yeah.
I just really kind of put it in a category that I never thought that I would tap into.
Yeah.
However, God's plans are different than my plans, right? And we have to
Yep.
always pray about what His will is for us. I'm sorry. Pray what His will is for us and be open to that. So in 2020, there was something that happened in 2020. So it's when the school system here had the kids come home because of COVID,
Yeah.
I started thinking, what does this look like for us? And I kept hearing these rumors that kids weren't going back to school, but they were going to do online learning. And I'm like, what? If they're going to be home with me, I I get very antsy here at the house and I like to be out. I want to be
Yes.
outside if it's a pretty day. I want to be at the park. I want to be hiking, like all the things, right? And so to think through us being kind of locked down here at the house in front of the computer the majority of the day, I just didn't think that that was going to work for us. And
Yeah.
so I started to tell my husband, I think I might want to homeschool at least the first semester while they're doing the online learning, the rest of the school system doing the online learning. And
Yeah.
he was like, "You're crazy. I know you. Like, you're not going to have the patience for that. You're not a teacher type because I'm not. I
Right.
am typically have just let me do it, get out of my way, and just let me do it. I can get it done so much
Let me
faster.
take charge and let me just get it done. Yes.
Yes. And I've actually one time had a boss tell me that that was a weakness of mine, that I don't teach people through things, and that she
Right.
didn't until I learn to figure that out, I would never be in a leadership role because I just wanted to do things myself. And she's like, you've got to learn how to delegate. So I took that in with all of this. I'm like, okay, that is a problem of mine. I need to figure that out. So, but So we call ourselves a COVID homeschool family because
Yes.
COVID really pushed us to it. So I
Yeah.
entered into this knowing that it was only going to be for a short season, but then we got the taste of it. I ordered a bunch of different curriculum because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. Where
And
do you begin? Yeah.
right. And so I just ordered a bunch of different stuff saying, we'll weed through this and figure out what works for us, what doesn't. And that first year really was doing that. But when we got the taste of freedom of what homeschool really is like, I just don't think we can go back at this point.
Mm.
I mean, we will take it year by year because, again, God's plans are different than mine. We'll see what He
Sure.
has for us, but there's no going back in the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
We live so free now. I literally don't even know what's happening at the schools. I don't know their schedule, but I don't know like when spring break or fall break is because we just live on our own terms. And with that, when my daughter was going into kindergarten, so my son was going into second grade, my daughter was going into kindergarten in 2020,
Right. Yeah.
um, or the 2020-2021 year school year.
Right. Yeah.
So at that point, I started looking at what was needed for education. And for a kindergartner, pencil to paper, they only need 45 minutes of schoolwork.
Wow.
And that blew my mind because I'm like, they're gone 8 hours a day. And that really solidified what I was seeing with my son in his kindergarten and first grade years is
Yeah.
that there's just so much busy work because it really kind of is especially in elementary schools.
Yeah.
It's kind of a babysitting service, really, for the
Yeah.
parents to be able to go work. And yeah, they're getting some learning done, but a lot of it is busy work. And with that 45, of course, my daughter did more than 45 minutes of schoolwork because we were here
Yeah.
doing things. And really, everything that you do with them is a teaching, learning moment.
Everything.
So they're now getting real world experiences. For my son, for the second grade year, it was 2 hours worth of schoolwork. And still, even then, you still are like, what are they doing the other 6 hours at school, right?
I know.
And in my son's first year, or I'm sorry, first grade year, I had friends that would go in and volunteer, and they would always report back, they're doing busy work, they're doing busy work. And so that, again, just really solidified that information for me. Going back to our lifestyle,
Yeah.
so we do love to travel, and we have a lot of opportunity to travel.
Yeah.
Hello, Amanda and I did
Yeah.
Paris together last
Yeah.
year, and it was
Yes.
amazing.
I know. And I know,
Yeah,
like, within this time period, you guys were starting to travel with your kids because
yeah.
when they're younger, it's harder to travel with them. It's nice to be able to leave them at the grandparents' house while you guys go on
Mhm.
trips. And with, I know your business that you do, that you guys were going on amazing trips, but now it's like to the point where you want to take them with you on a lot of the trips where they can experience this stuff. And so it just plays into you being able to take them with you and be able to go whenever you want. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how, that was a factor in it and maybe some of the places that you've been able to go with them.
Yeah. So let me back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
When my son was an infant, I had to take a trip for work. I was working for corporate America at that time. And I sat on an airplane next to this guy. We had a great conversation. He told me that his kids were that preteen, teenage years, and they,
Mhm.
as a family, they have a different person in their group of four that chooses. They alternate each year on who chooses their family vacation,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
yeah, and at that time, his daughter was 13, and she chose to go to Hawaii that year for the family. And they were frustrated because they'd already done Hawaii and they all wanted to do somewhere else, but it didn't matter. That was her year to choose. And I remember being like, what an amazing life this guy has. He ended up being the
Seriously.
CFO for Comcast. And at that time, I'm like, why is he flying in coach? But then again, he's financial guy. Like, of course, he's saving money and
Totally.
flying
He's
coach.
like, "Do I fly coach or spend an extra 300 on first class? I'll fly coach, it's fine."
Right. Yeah. Maybe the CEO wouldn't do that, but the CFO would do that.
Yeah.
So I came home and told my husband, I want this for our life. Like, I want to be able to live this. And what can we do to set ourselves up for this lifestyle? And
Yeah.
so for the past 10 years, we've been really trying to do that financially. But then when we had the financial part of it established, enter the school season where now all of a sudden our time is not our own anymore, and now we're dictated by the school system schedule. That's not going to work for us.
So
And so with that freedom, we have now been able to travel, and they're getting real life experiences. So as an
yes.
example, we did go to Hawaii with them. Well, it was in September, so while all the kids were back at school, we were flying to Hawaii, and
I
they were
remember I
able.
was jealous. I'm like, I want to be doing that now, please.
I know. Yeah, and let me speak to that. I am not trying to place jealousy in anybody's hearts right
No.
now. Everybody has to figure out their family's
Yeah,
schedule, their family's goals. This is just our goal, and we worked really hard to
you
figure
did.
out how we can do this.
Yeah.
Um, and it just fits for us. But yeah, so with Hawaii, they're marine biology days while they are swimming with turtles and sharks and
I mean, is
surfing.
it better to do that or read about it in a book? I mean, come on, people.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
let's go actually do it, you know? That's what I always
Mhm.
say about, like, learning a language. You can sit in a classroom all day long, but unless you go visit the country and, like, stay there or, like, be immersed in it, you're
Yeah.
not really gonna fully learn it or fully be, and understand, you know?
Right.
So, it's the
Agreed.
same type situation, right?
Yeah, agreed. And so, with language, so another place that we went during the school season, Costa Rica. So we went there last year in October, and we pretty much had Costa Rica to ourselves. And that's one of the things that I love about this. We travel so we are very, very frugal when it comes to our traveling. Savvy, maybe price savvy is what
Yeah,
I would consider my husband's expertise. And so, with being able to travel whenever we want and not be dictated by the school schedule, we look for see or places that when their low season is, we go then. And so we're able to travel for so much cheaper,
yeah,
and then also not fight the crowds. We in Costa Rica, we had both resorts that we were at. We split our trip at two different times, or two different places, I mean, and we had practically the resorts by ourselves. In fact, at one point in Guanacaste, this big massive resort, it was a Marriott resort. They literally said when we got there, they're like, we have like maybe 10 people here. Do you guys just want to go choose your room? And so we walked around the resort and looked for different rooms, and we ended up getting this room that normally is $1,500 a night, and we got it completely for free because we were using points, Marriott points. But yeah, so just that, we go snowboarding every winter, January,
yep,
February. We just take our snowboarding. So we like those. Not only are we building these core family memories of the four of us, we are experiencing life together, and my kids are building such a bond. Yeah, they fight, and all kids fight,
yeah,
but they're building such a bond that I don't see with a lot of families where their kids are separated all day long and then
yeah,
they come home. And one thing that I was told before my son went into kindergarten that hit me straight in the heart and made me like feel like I wanted to throw up. Somebody said to me, once your kid enters school, you no longer get the best of them. And I
yeah.
was like, oh, like
So
what?
true. Yeah,
Because they come home 4 o'clock, they're tired, they're overstimulated, they then have homework to do or sports. I see my son is on a travel soccer team, and his friends that are on that team that do that go to school, they're
yeah,
at school until 4, then they come home, barely have enough time to change, and then they're off to soccer practice several nights a week. And so they're they're just go 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 go. And I really, with homeschooling, we can be done if we're really like focused for the day. We can be done by 1 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock if we're not focused. And
yeah,
then we have some downtime. And where does
yes,
creativity come from? It comes from downtime. And
yeah,
so that I'm a creative brain, and I want my kids to be able to come up with ideas, to have that downtime to
yeah.
thrive
And,
in.
there's a tutorial that they go to as well, right? So they're not
Yep.
just at home, the 5 days. Talk about a little bit about what that looks like how many days are they home, and then what days do they do the tutorial because they are with other kids on those days, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. So Of course, there's a stigma behind homeschooling that it's like all the weird families, the weird homeschool kids, they're not getting any socialization. That's my
Mhm.
number one question that I always get.
Yeah.
Well, do they socialize? Are they like, how is their socialization skills? And to be perfectly honest, they get more socialization now than what they did at school
Mhm.
because we do a tutorial 2 days a week, and they we just a bunch of us homeschool moms, we hired a former teacher who no longer wanted to work for the school system, and we drop them off with her 2 days a week, and she does language arts and social studies with them.
Awesome.
And I know not every homeschool family does this, so it's definitely not something that like people have to do,
Right.
but for me, because I run a business, that gives me the opportunity 2 days a week to be able to work my business.
Yeah.
So that is, where they do get socialization there, but that's not the only place. So because we're done with schoolwork 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
we're able to fill our afternoons if we want, because sometimes my kids are like, you know what, I've had my fill on socialization this week. I just want
Good.
to like
Yeah.
sit and be creative or do nothing for a minute. But we are able to fill park play dates. We're able to go to like the trampoline park. We're going to go for hikes. All these things that if they were in the school system, there's just not enough room in the day for those things. And especially on beautiful days, I
Oh,
am so grateful for this lifestyle. Like today is so beautiful.
it is
Mm.
gorgeous today.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there'll be times where like all of a sudden I'll get a message and it'll be like Nerf war party at the park in 30 minutes. And we're like, stop Nerf. We're going real fast because it's too pretty to do
so
anything right
fun.
now.
Yes.
Yeah. So the socialization is there, and then of course you add in sports. They get plenty of it. And when my son was in the school system, he had maybe like one, maybe two people in his class that he actually liked. A lot of them he would complain about that
Mhm.
they acted a lot younger. He's pretty mature for his age, so
Yes.
he would get really annoyed by the kids that acted really young because they would be just making all these random noises or being distracting. Or he had one kid that was stealing things from everybody in the classroom. There was one kid who would make threats and just be such a bully to others. So he really came home with a lot of negative experiences. There was one day where I was getting him off the bus and I had just gone to get some ice cream. So I was standing there at the bus stop with an ice cream cone for him. And he
Yeah.
gets off the bus and he sees the ice cream and he just starts bawling because the kids on the bus got in so much trouble. And I'm not trying to say my son is perfect by any means, but in this scenario, and
Yeah.
I verified this by the bus driver because I wanted to make sure that I
You
wasn't
wanted
just
to
hearing
know.
him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But the kids on the bus, there were multiple of them that were cussing, that were like yelling really bad things. And the whole bus got in trouble because of it, because the bus driver just had enough of it, right? He just
Yeah.
exploded on everybody. And my son came off the bus like crying, didn't feel like he had deserved the ice cream because the whole bus had gotten in trouble. And so there was just those moments too. As a kindergartner, he came to me one day and said that one of his classmates at lunch was talking about how he was looking at naked girls on the internet in kindergarten. So there were those influences too that I thought, so as a homeschool mom, I'm able to bring in the influences and the friends that I think are going to be healthy for my kids and
Yeah.
not have these outside influences that I just don't know what's happening at the school or what's being said.
Yes.
And so I'm really grateful for that. So, one of the questions that I get a lot is people, they want to homeschool, but they work a full time job or their schedule may not be as open as what mine is.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I can say to that is completely get the school system out of your head
Yeah.
and get a system that works for your family. So if you work full time and your kids are of age and are able to stay at home, you're able to delegate work for them while you're working. And then any work that you need to do with them, you can do in the evening or you can do on the weekends. If you work from home, get some kind of system to where like maybe while you're working, they're doing arts and crafts or reading or just playing outside.
Yeah.
And then in your breaks, you can help them with what they need help with, and then they can do their independent work while you're working again. So it can be completely whatever your family needs it to be. It doesn't have to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, we start our work day, and then at 2, we end our school day. It doesn't have to be that.
I
So
I
I
think
really
that's
encourage
important.
people.
Yeah, I think that's so important because everybody's schedule is gonna be different, you know?
Mhm.
And so you will mold it and fix it to what works for you because, yes, there are a lot of parents that are working outside the home or, now there's a lot of people that have work from home jobs.
Mhm.
And so what better way to kind of teach your kids about delegation, to delegate the things and to show them kind of independently what they're able to do. Um,
Mhm.
I think kids can surprise themselves sometimes as to like what they are capable of
Mhm.
doing on their own, without
Yeah.
having somebody there like right over their shoulder. So that is a huge point, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's going to look differently for everybody. So don't
Yeah.
count it out, even if you do work full time, that there are different ways to go about it. So yes, thank you for sharing that. We all know that things are changing in this world. No matter where you stand and what you believe, things are changing, and there's a lot that when we were in school, what they taught were just the basics of, you know, math, science, social studies, reading, things like that. Now it seems like there's little things trickling in
Mhm.
even in the regular curriculum that you're like, wait, what were you learning about?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that and society changing and things like that. What are your thoughts on that particular subject in maybe what they're kind of bringing into the school system? Because I know that has played a factor, obviously,
Mhm.
in your decision.
Yeah. So entering into homeschooling, my mind wasn't thinking about that stuff because honestly,
Right.
it has accelerated so much in
Yeah.
the past 3 years. So when we entered in, I gave you the reasons why we entered into
Yeah.
homeschooling. But what has kept us here is not only the lifestyle that we get to have, but also being combative of I hear from friends what is being said
Yeah.
and at the school level. And I'm like, nope, no, I'm so thankful that we have already established homeschooling and that this is what we're doing.
Wow.
I mentioned what my son heard in kindergarten,
Yeah.
but there's been so much more that has infiltrated the school system since then. I mean, if we want to talk about like the indoctrination,
Yeah.
I was listening to something that said, you know, what would you rather have your kid be taught? Like uh, to say the Pledge of Allegiance and to learn how to pray and to learn how to be a good citizen and to respect elders and to help the family and to be able to make money, those things? Or do you want them to be taught that at a kindergarten level and
Yeah.
then it only builds upon itself the more that they're into the school? Or do you want them to be taught that the values that you're learning at home, you don't have to have those values. You
Right.
can choose, you can do this, you can be a cat if you want, and everybody has to accept it. Or do you want to send your daughter to school with the fear that she might get raped in the girls' bathroom because they're letting boys into the bathroom? I mean, those
Yeah.
are, I know it
Yeah.
sounds extreme, but that's actually happening. And
Yeah.
so and it doesn't matter what county you live in or what schools you send your kids to. The best schools are dealing with this.
Yes.
So those those things that I keep hearing just solidify us more here and here. That this is like I really think this is where we need to be. And to give you an example, our science curriculum right now,
Yeah.
who knows what they're teaching in science in school? They're probably teaching Big Bang, they're probably teaching evolution, those things.
Yeah.
And my kids got to choose their side. And that's also something great about homeschooling. There's choices.
Yeah.
And
So
they
good.
got to choose based on what they are interested in. And I gave them a big list. Last year, they chose water, how like ocean, and rainwater and like all this
Yeah.
works. This year, they chose specifically to learn about archaeology and how archaeologists have found things that prove that the Bible is real. And you would never be able to teach that into a school system, and they wouldn't have the opportunity to learn. And I'm learning right along with them because we watch like a
Yeah.
5-minute video, and then they do like a crossword puzzle, and that's our science for the day. And then next year we might choose science more of like biology or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's we do Bible, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we learn about the science through a biblical lens, and
Yeah.
that to me is so important.
Culturally, especially when you are a believer and you want your kids to have that good foundation, um, is super important. And so being able to learn that within their curriculum, I feel like is just, I mean, huge, just
Yeah.
amazing, you know? Um, so let's talk a little bit about how that kind of bleeds into um, society
Mhm.
and the world and what that looks like within not only of what's going on here in the United States, but what's going on in other areas of the world
Mhm.
that our children are not only we're experiencing, but our children are hearing about, um, that also plays into another reason why a lot of people are homeschooling, and I'm sure you are as well,
Mhm.
of recent events within the last, I mean, heavy events within the last few years.
Yeah.
Um, how does that play into your homeschool journey?
Yeah, well, one thing that I always say is that the world cannot have my kids.
Yeah,
And that is where I really think about that a lot, because when you say the teachers have a heavy load, I don't want to downplay what the teachers do at all,
right.
because I know that there are some amazing teachers. Your son has an amazing teacher this year.
Yeah,
We know her.
yeah.
That is not right. That is not always the case.
No,
Um,
absolutely,
my
absolutely.
son's kindergarten teacher, great. She was great. His first grade teacher, I didn't like the things that she was just casually saying in front of the children. She talked
Yeah,
a lot about living with her boyfriend, and that combated what we're teaching at home. But she
yeah,
would always talk about it, and I just didn't like it. And so it's like these little things, you know?
yeah,
So when it comes to like the world view of things, there's a lot that the world just can't have my kids, and I'm not going to let the world come in with their world viewpoint
yeah,
and make them question if their parents are right about
yeah,
what they're teaching at home.
yeah,
So then with the world events that are happening, I am a very big believer that you have to teach your kids the enemy,
yeah,
because they have to know what they're fighting against.
right.
And I'm very open with what is happening in the world and talking to my kids about it, versus when I was growing up, in the 80s, 90s, I really like our parents tried to shelter us from that stuff. And
Yeah,
that's not going against my parents. It's just that it was happening in small pockets of the world that
right.
it didn't affect our day-to-day life. So they just kept those topics away from us.
Yeah,
There's no longer that option. We have to talk to our kids about the things that are happening so that they know their enemy. It is no secret that Satan is here to come after our kids.
yep,
Because if he can get the next generation, what one generation tolerates, the next generation will thrive in,
yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
so we're really open and talking, whether it's the world, like economic stage, if it
Yeah,
is the what's happening with the wars that are happening, whether it's the transgender stuff that is being pushed down our kids' throats. All of these topics, we combat here at home, and I think that's the perfect place to do it, versus them learning about it at a place I don't know if shares the same viewpoints as us.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. It all plays into it, especially I know when you mentioned when, the pandemic started, um,
Mhm.
we, I think a lot of people were just sort of like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And, like, "How long is this gonna last? What's happening?" And I remember you specifically, you gave me a look and I was like, "What? You think like it's kind of like the like things are revving up for like end time stuff. And I remember you were like, "Yep, that's what I believe." What are your thoughts? And how are you sharing that with your kids?
Yeah. So there are so many things happening in the world that are leaving people wondering what in the world is happening. And most people don't know really where to look to find those answers. They're
Yeah,
looking at all the different areas, and everybody's looking. There is not one person out there who isn't questioning something that's
yeah,
happening.
because they see the
And
change of what's happening. They see the
right,
differences of you just can feel it, I don't care who
yeah,
you are. It's like you cannot coexist and not feel the changes and the just all the just the absurdity of what's going on, you know?
right. Yeah, every continent feels it. I have connections on every continent except for Antarctica, I believe. And everybody is feeling it, saying things along the lines of what is happening. And most people are looking to the world to help explain these things.
Yeah,
And I'm not faulting them. They just don't know where to look. They're looking to their governments, their TVs, their news stations, their podcasts, all these things,
yeah,
versus looking to the true source, which is the Bible,
yeah,
God's written word on what is going to happen.
yeah,
And why we know that the Bible is true and why we can look to the Bible during these times with full expectancy that this is the true reason for these things is because of the prophecies that have already been fulfilled to the letter that Jesus said or the prophet said that would happen.
yeah,
So we have so many prophecies in the Bible that already came true. And then we have all these other ones that were waiting to happen. And uh, when it comes to eschatology, which is the study of end times prophecy, when it comes to that, people always want to say, oh, they've been saying that stuff for years and he
yeah,
still hasn't come. Be very, very careful saying that because by people saying that, that is literally fulfilling another prophecy, Second
yeah,
Timothy, right? So it says that there'll be mockers and scoffers in the last days saying, "Oh, where is the sign of his coming?" From way back from when the fathers first fell asleep, people have been saying this, and yet he still isn't here, right? And
yeah,
that's paraphrasing. But uh, the problem with that is that everybody has such a short-term view, or we are just an instant gratification society that if it doesn't happen right now, they throw everything out. And
right,
that's a very, very risky viewpoint to have
yeah,
because we have to take a step back. Remember, God does not work in our timeline, and he doesn't work in this very moment. He works in the span of his timeline, right? So, in the past, it's since 1948 when Israel became a nation again. That is when really the end time prophecies started taking place. Prior
mhm,
to that, there really wasn't a whole lot that was happening. During those time frames, that was the majority of the time from the gospel spreading throughout the world, right?
yeah,
And then you enter into 1948 when Israel becomes a nation again. That was the kickoff to what Jesus explained would happen in the end days. And then for the past 70 plus years, we have been seeing little bit by little bit. Something might happen and then a whole decade go by. But the
right,
people who said, oh my, that is prophecy right there back in 1948 or 1967 or in the 80s, when they saw prophecy, and everybody scoffed and mocked at them because they claimed that that was a piece of the prophecy and then nothing would
yeah,
happen for another 10 years. They were not wrong. Everybody who scoffed and mocked, they were the ones with a short-term view here.
yeah,
And now, speed up to where we are now. For the past 3 years, we have seen it. So that is also prophecy happening because Jesus described it as birthing pains, that the end time prophecies would happen as if a woman was in labor. What happens during labor? A woman has a birthing pain, and it might be a whole nother day before she has another birthing pain. And
yeah,
then all of a sudden she has two in the same day. And then the next day she has several. And then it speeds up and it gets more intense and until the baby is born, right? So that's exactly what we're seeing now. We
mhm,
have never seen a time period in the history of the world where so many prophecies are overlapping prophecy, right? So
Yeah.
that is the birthing pain. Now, I get very excited about this topic, and I'm like, oh, he's coming right now. Like the reality is that I can only see what's happening right now. I
Right.
can't see beyond this, right? So
Right.
what seems so intense right now is intense,
Yeah.
but how much more intense is it going to get?
That's the
I just
question.
don't know. I can
Right.
only say, here's what Jesus prepared us for, and
Yeah.
here are the things that we're looking at. And so let's not be surprised when something else happens, because we're looking at prophecy. So Israel
Yeah.
getting attacked, as horrible as it is,
So bad.
we
Yeah.
know that's going, we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. We didn't know that people were going to be taken hostage or that they were going to cut babies' heads off.
Right.
We didn't know that
Yeah.
piece of it. But what we do know is that there's going to be enemies coming against Israel in the last days. So for these past couple decades where they have been at peace,
Yeah.
we knew that was going, that had a short time frame because
Yeah.
of what prophecy said.
Right.
And so now with this piece, what we can look at is the prophecies moving forward of Russia, Iran, Turkey. We know that they will eventually come against Israel in an alliance. Are we seeing that set up? I
Hmm.
think possibly that we are seeing that set up. What we
Hmm.
also know is that there will be an agreement that's made stronger with Israel for a false peace.
Right.
Do we have that set up right now where Israel does not have peace, but there has been an agreement that somebody could come in and try to make stronger for a false peace? We do have that set up. I'm not saying that this is the exact scenario. Only time will tell, and we will not know until the other side of it if this is exactly that. But what we can see is we had the Abraham Accord set up.
Yeah.
Israel now is not at peace, leading the way for somebody to come in and make those Abraham Accords stronger. It's all just for a short period of time, to make them have a false peace for a few years, and then for somebody to be risen to a high power
Hmm.
that fools the nations because he
Yeah.
created this false peace in Israel. We have that being set up. So uh, that is, oh gosh, I could talk so long on this subject because
Yeah.
I am very passionate about it. You know that about me. But to go
We can
back
we can
to,
have we can have you come back and we'll just cover the whole gamut of it. We'll like
yeah, that
we'll do
sounds
the
great.
whole. But I think it's important to mention that because it falls into the category of not at the time that you knew it, but when you decided to homeschool, I feel like
Mhm.
when you had prayed about it, God was setting you up for this in your journey, obviously knowing what was going to happen, God,
Yeah.
and knowing your passion towards, studying all that to say, wow, like now see what's happening and, you
Mhm.
know, let's look at current events and now it just confirms, like, for you and your family, like, being able to keep your kids at home, and
Mhm.
doing the homeschool, that it's just a confirmation more so, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to how do I explain things to them? And I am just very open with them. So they're at home with me. They're hearing me listen to what's happening through
Yeah.
different sources that I listen to, and it creates this whole amazing discussion.
I think that's so huge because when you have that open communication at home and
Mhm.
your kids know that they can talk to you about anything and everything,
Mhm.
they are just going to respect you even more, trust you even more, and really learn, the core and foundation of what you want them to know about what's going on. But it sounds like they're flourishing, they're thriving, they're growing, they're learning.
Mhm.
So I just want to thank you for sharing all that and being vulnerable with me and, with the listeners. And yes, we'll definitely have you back because I want to go into some more subject matter that we weren't able to cover. So anyway, all that to say, thank you, Natasha, for coming on today. And I know that it's going to be very inspirational for a lot of listeners. So, um, yeah, we'll have you back. And
Yeah.
everybody who's listening, thank you so much for listening today. And we'll see you next time on Amominous.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.